Will Hardy's changing the offense, and it's giving our guy Cody Williams a chance to thrive. We're talking
about it coming up here on Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps and now have a free daily newsletter as well for you. Go to LockedOnDaily.com and sign up for the Locked On Jazz daily newsletter because we've got to catch Nick Angstadt and Matt George. I cannot lose to the Kings and the Mavericks and subscribers. Please do this for me. All right, on today's show, late game watch is back. I'll actually throw some of that in the newsletter as well when I don't have time for it on the shows. I love late game watch, watching the final 8-9 minutes of every NBA game that's close and learning. And I've got one team for you that is in significant trouble, in my opinion, and another superstar that is just playing out of his head in late game watch. We'll preview the Bucks. It's the 1-6 Jazz against the 1-6 Bucks. One of those teams trying to win a championship. One of those teams is not. That makes things a little interesting. Cool little notes on Walker Kessler and Keyonte George I'll share with you, but we're going to start with Cody Williams and how he's emerging differently and look totally different against Chicago in a 5-for-8 performance, an active game. Cody had been sitting in the corner shooting corner threes, and honestly, it was ugly. He's like 1 of a million on corner threes right now. The shot's not going in. He shot 41% in college, and the hope was that he was going to be able to shoot particularly well when he got to the NBA level. And the truth is that he's got some footwork and speed of release issues, and he's not making shots, and therefore he's really not confident at all. And so what we saw against Chicago is Cody Williams using a bunch of his strengths right now about as well as he can. He's shooting 13% from three, and he took 1 3 the entire night. He missed it. And he needs to be able to make the three. And I don't have any doubts he will be able to make the three. It just takes some time to get used to it and understand and all of that. But what we saw in his shots are completely different. One, Will Hardy and the Jazz have altered the way they're playing a little bit. I'll get into that. I got into that a little bit the other night before we had our squad show, which I hope you liked. 2, he took advantage of opportunities and created some opportunities himself with movement because he wasn't just sitting in the corner because of Will's adjustments. And this is where he can be really good. So let's walk through the shots. The first one is the most noticeable. It's early in the game. He gets an off-ball screen from Colin Sexton. They're going to switch that. It's a small screen. He's out in the corner. Colin goes to set the pick off the ball. Ball's up top. Cody comes off the curl. He grabs it and immediately turns to the basket. Now we're working with Cody Williams' strengths. He's long. He's a great 1-foot jumper. He's on balance as he moves through the lane. He can get places in few steps and limited dribbles. And he's going to have to add strength as he gets older. That's not a strength right now. We'll talk about that in a minute. But those are his strengths. Long, 1-foot jumper, on balance, and can get long distances with single strides and single dribbles. So he takes the corner, and I don't actually care whether he makes these shots or not, so I'm not going to get into it, but it just tells you how did he get it. Second time is he's playing up top, fast break, leak out, got behind the defense, slam dunk. Great, active, getting down the floor, changing ends of the floor. Will Hardy has said that he's in the right place at the right time at an alarmingly high rate for a rookie. That was a great read on his part right there. He wasn't an offensive rebound. You do not want to get in the vortex of nothing where you're not really crashing and you're not really releasing. And he released because he wasn't there. Perfect play. Okay? Playing on the right wing with the ball. Tosses into the post to John Collins. It's setting up a handoff or a tight curl at the elbow. Kobe White's his defender. Kobe White decides, and we could have looked at all these, I guess. I could have done these all in video. Sorry, just thought about that. Kobe White decides he's got to be in a spot. Cody Williams reads exactly right. Backdoor cut layup. Movement, action, handoffs. Okay. Gets an open 3 off early action in the right corner. He missed it. Should have taken it. Perfect. Offensive running a play. Keyonte's high right. Cody cuts through the lane. Great read by Keyonte with 9 assists that day. Finds Cody on the cut for a layup. Offensive rebound. He's just in the right place. Gets an offensive rim, misses the flip back up. But there's a shot that's coming out of activity. It's the same way as the release on the fast break. It's coming out of activity. He's not just stationary. Another pin down. Walker sets the pin down on the right wing. Cody gets it right behind Walker. It now turns into an open side pick and roll where Cody's putting the ball on the floor. And this is one that's interesting because this is one he's missing right now a lot. And he's going to make it in a year or two. And maybe even by the end of the year. It's actually when we talk about little improvements and little things to watch, this is something I'll be watching all year long on Cody Williams. So he comes off the pin down, catches the pass. He's behind Walker. He's doesn't have it at a point where he can make the curl. The pass might have been a little early. So now he's into a pick and roll with Walker. He takes a pick from Walker. He drives in the lane, and he just can't own his space well enough. He's on the right side, so he ends up trying to go left side, left hand, reverse side layup. It's the right play. It's the play that's going to work one day. And as he gets stronger, he's going to lower his shoulder, have the contact, probably draw a foul. Right now, he's kind of playing off the contact, getting driven off his lane and fading off and missing it by a little bit. And in a year or two with some strength, he's probably putting that ball on the deck once, lowering his shoulder into the defender, drawing contact, or he's such a good one-foot jumper. If he could maintain his lane, he's packing that with his left hand. That's the moment to watch here. When we're watching these little wins and these little victories and these little developments with Cody, watch him come on a pin down and either have him finish with a pack off contact or have him finish on the correct side of the basket or close on the reverse side using the rim. Right now, he's getting just pushed way off his thing. It's this kind of long, looping, outstretched layup. Can he at some point get the angle strong enough, hold it so that he goes up on either and packs it, or he goes up on the reverse side, but the rim's now his holding off the shot blocker. Those are the little things. And the last one was just a really confident, neat play. Catches on the wing, pump fakes, goes in, big step left, big step right. This is where in single steps he covers a lot of ground. He's not a wiggler like Donovan Mitchell, but he can change direction because of the incredible athleticism side to side with his feet. And he gets to the rack for a layup. Okay, those are a bunch of open plays, which as a young player, you're going to have to do. You're not getting plays called for you. A bunch of pin downs that are called for you, and some handoff off-ball stuff. This is where the Jazz have made some changes. And we'll get into that in the next segment. But specifically to Cody. I've talked about this a lot about him. He has all of these skills. My silly analogy is Michelangelo's David. You're going to have to knock away a lot of granite to find Michelangelo's David inside that granite. It's all in there. But the game against Chicago was the first time we began to see the pieces. And the pieces are this length, this athleticism, this intelligence, eventually strength to be able to finish around the basket with that length. By going off 1 foot and having the length, he's going to always be able to get on the cup. And then eventually he's going to make shots. So this I thought was really neat. And the things to watch are to watch how he's getting his shots. Now, those were all at the rim or the 1-3. Is he just sitting in the corner taking threes? Is he active and moving? Is he creating his own opportunities? And if the Jazz transform the offense in a manner that is suddenly allowing them to give Cody other opportunities? And the answer to that is yes. It's pretty dramatic, and I'll have it for you next as we continue on Locked On Jazz. I got to do one of my favorite things this morning. I got an email. I think his name was Kyle, and Kyle emailed me, and he said, hey, I'm interested in Intercap. He actually said Interlock, but what he really wanted was Intercap. And Intercap lending is Steve Carter. And so this morning, my guy Kyle got introduced to Steve Carter, and incredibly, within 3 minutes of me introducing him, Steve Carter had responded, or Kyle had said thank you, and within 23 minutes, there it was, Steve Carter had responded, and the two of them are off and going at Intercap Lending. Intercap Lending is our own personal loan officer, Steve Carter. They've been with us for years and is singly the best customer service experience you can have. It's a mortgage company shaking things up by making home loans accessible, straightforward, and personal. Whether you're buying your first home, refinancing, exploring options as a veteran, Intercap is here to guide you. We have our own personal loan officer that gives you a people-first approach. He's incredible. We talk about unreasonable hospitality and Locked On. Steve Carter is the essence of unreasonable hospitality. He is our personal loan officer, and he is the best customer service imaginable. There's an interesting little note about Intercap. Most banks' underwriting turn times are still at 24 hours for Intercap. Most banks are at 4 to 7 days to get a decision from an underwriter. And the reason Intercap is so fast is they're still servicing roughly 60% of their own loans. So it's not this boom, boom, get you done, send you out to somebody else, make sure everybody else is all right, because we're never going to own it. They actually own their own. So Intercap Lending, really impressive. The reviews are endless. Malcolm said, amazingly knowledgeable, helpful, friendly, and went way above and beyond. Derek said, super easy to work with, got us approved, and closed on a home in under 3 weeks. Their app makes everything a breeze. It's Intercap Lending. Email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com. Today's show is also brought to you by underwear. What? Yes, and it's underwear that when I got it, my wife got super jealous. What are you talking about, Locke? What are you possibly talking about? I am talking about Skims. In fact, I'll tell you the truth. On audio, this will make no sense, but I'm not lying, because here's my Skims. Not that you really want to see this, but there it is. There's my Skims laid out for today. And why is that relevant that I'm using Skims today? Because we are on a long bus to Milwaukee. Then I'm calling the game. And then we're on a long plane flight to San Antonio. So I had to go grab my single most comfortable pair of underwear. And my single most comfortable pair of underwear now is Skims. Yes, Skims for men. Skims is making underwear for men. My wife thought it was really cool when we got a Skims package. She was like, oh, thanks, that's great. And I was like, no, that's actually for me. I've got the boxer brief stretch 5-inch. There's also the 3-inch for you as well if you're a traveler. It is all at Skims, men's Skims. That's right. So SKIMS. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu. And if you're looking for perfect gifts for the whole family, Skims just launched the biggest holiday shop ever. Also available at skims.com. Skims is now available for men. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Greatly appreciate it. Poll question the other day on YouTube had some interesting results. We ask these poll questions for you each day on YouTube. And yesterday's squad poll question, how do you feel about the tradition of rookies wearing theme backpacks? 48% said it's a fun tradition that should be continued. 40% they're indifferent. 12% outdated and should be reconsidered. So clearly Lauren Green should be wearing her bluey backpack that she's not wearing. What player's performance stood out to the Jazz win over the Bulls? 54% said Keyonte George, 18% John Collins, 15% Walker Kessler, and 13% said Cody Williams. Hope you enjoyed the squad show yesterday. A little different. Election day. We were all sitting around. It's not usually what we do, and I know that it's a shock when you get that. It's not what you expected. And it's not geeky numbers, but hopefully that was fun for you. If we do it again, I'd be curious. Two things. Do you want us to do it again? And what do you want it to be about? I found hosting that show was hard. Do you want road stories? Do you want what road is like? Do you want a one-time show where we just all talk about what it's like to be on the road? What is it you would want out of the squad show? All right. Will Hardy's changed the Jazz offense, at least for 2 games. Still early, but there's something to this. Okay. Let's go with a few things here. There's 2 different numbers we're playing around with here that makes it a little complicated. So, right now, this season, 19% of our plays are ending. Okay, so one of the metrics I use talks about how a play ends, and then the other metric I use talks about how many times we do something. Okay, so let's start with 19% of our plays are ending in a handoff, off the action of a handoff, or off an off-ball screen. That's up from 12% a year ago. Let me say that again, and then I'll try to explain why that's relevant, because it's kind of a weird number. So 19% of our plays are ending with the last action being an off-ball screen or a handoff. And a year ago, it was 12%. 19%, to me, from my math, shows that that is the highest number team in the league combined using off-ball screens and handoffs instead of pick and rolls to get their offense, the final play of their offense. They're similar plays in some ways. Really, I mean, the off-ball screen is literally a handoff without the ball. It's a handoff or a pick and roll without the ball. And the handoff is a little bit of a pick and roll, but as I was talking to Mike Brown of the Sacramento Kings, who run the most handoffs in the league, it gives the ball handler more options. One, they're on the move when they get it, which gives them an advantage rather than being static. Two, they can go backdoor if somebody overplays, like the way Cody Williams did when Kobe White looked the wrong direction off the John Collins play. Or they can come around it, or if they go under it, they go behind it. So it gives you, Mike Brown was explaining, it gives you more options in what you're doing. And so the Jazz have added this, they've increased it. We were the number one off-ball screen with Lauri the last 2 years. That's where Will Hardy's kind of signature has been, that we play off-ball screen. And that's particularly good because Lauri's 7 feet, being guarded by their biggest wing player, the pick comes and gets set. And it either gets set by a small, Colin Sexton, for example, at which point they have to switch it. So now Colin Sexton's small guys on Lauri, and Lauri punishes him. Or two, it's set by Walker Kessler, and the big is in drop. And so the big sets the pick on Lauri's man, and Lauri pops behind for an open three while the guy who's supposed to switch out, which is Walker's man, is covering the rim. Right? So those are the two things that Will really is what he's made Lauri out of. And it's where this isolation stuff we're trying with Lauri's not working yet, but we're trying to expand his game. So, again, now, that was the amount of plays that end in that. Then there's just the amount of times you run an off-ball screen or you run a handoff. The Jazz ran 58 handoffs against the Chicago Bulls on the other day. It was the most handoffs run by any team in any game all year. The Brooklyn Nets are the highest handoff team in the league. They have 6 of the 8 highest handoff games this year, and they have 7 of the top 10. They're the top handoff team. Sacramento's not running nearly as many as they used to. The Jazz game against Chicago was the number one most amount of handoffs by a single team all year, and the Jazz game against Denver was the 5th most handoffs. So the Jazz ran 58 and 51 handoffs throughout the night. Now, not every single time that ends in a play. You might run multiple handoffs on a play is kind of what I'm trying to say. And so the other one was what the play ended at. So when you look at this, here's how much this is, and the handoff is really what's new. As I just said, we lived by the off-ball screen in the past. You go to our games recently, our opening night game against Memphis, 32 handoffs, Warriors 36, Dallas 31, Sacramento 32, San Antonio 22. We came out of that and will adjust on this road trip. 51 against Denver, 58 against Chicago. So that's a little different than what we were doing before. Off-ball screens. Our off-ball screens, we ran 89 against Chicago. It's the most by any team in any game all year. So yes, we ran the most handoffs and the most off-ball screens in the same game. We ran 58 handoffs and 89 off-ball screens. If these numbers are correct, it seems impossible. We ran 147 off-ball screens or handoffs in one game. I don't know that I think that's right. I got to think there's some double count there. Regardless, again, if you kind of run through our season, we opened the year against Memphis and we ran 86 off-ball screens. That's like our game. Against Golden State, it went down to 76. Against Dallas, it went to 83. Somehow against Sacramento, it went all the way to 53, and San Antonio went all the way to 50. I think trying to get Keyonte going in a pick and roll. Back up, 84 and 89 against Denver. So we're watch it tonight. Our off-ball screen game and our handoff game. That's the adjustments that have been made largely. What gets interesting about this, and we'll talk about, is what does it do for our various players? We just showed what it does with Cody. We have Lauri has practiced yesterday and may be coming back. Jordan Clarkson practiced yesterday, may be coming back. Isaiah Collier practiced, may be coming back. It also helps Keyonte. It would be interesting, and I didn't do it, to go look at Keyonte's shots the other night. Some of them certainly are off the bounce threes. He took 9 of them. We talked about that 2 days ago. But are there and that's going to be his pick and roll game. He's got to take that. And frankly, that's what's going on in the league right now, is that guards are bombing off the bounce threes right now. It's a huge that's the talk of dinner around the league when you're talking about this off the bounce, bombing of off the bounce threes by guards. Shea's taking a bunch of them. In fact, Jason Tatum, I think, leads the league. Let me pull this up. I sent a text about this last night. Jason Tatum's taken 70 off the bounce threes in 9 games. Luka Doncic has taken 63 in 8. Trae Young's taken 60 of them in 9 games. Anthony Edwards has taken 54 in 7 games. Like, guys are taking 7 or 8 off the bounce. LaMelo's bombing 6 or 7 a game. Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Tyrese Halliburton, Dame Lillard, who we'll see tonight, has taken 40 in 7 games. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and Anthony Simons. Like, guards are bombing off the bounce threes right now. And so Keyonte is going to have to make hay on that. There are some reasons why tonight the handoff game is particularly important. Let's preview the Bucks and let's late game watch. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and Locked official sportsbook of Locked On. FanDuel's got great deals for you right now, because right now new customers get $5. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Tackle all the action at America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, NBA, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more when you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win $5. If you win your first $5 bet, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Locked On and official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Lines for tonight's Jazz game. Bucks are a 9.5-point favorite. Timberwolves are here in town, staying in Chicago. They will play the Bulls. They're an 8.5-point favorite. And the Spurs, who we play, are at home against Portland, are a 4-point favorite on that one. NFL game today as well. I believe it's the Ravens and the Bengals, and the Ravens are a 5.5-point favorite in that one. All at FanDuel.com. Win your first $5 bet. Get $150 in bonus bets. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. Locked On Daily to get your newsletter. Please do it. And if you're a late game watch fan, I'm going to try to put in some notes on late game watch at the bottom of my newsletters. Exclusive. You're going to empty the noggin after games. Late game watch exclusive. All right, Bucks preview. Here's a nice little note building on the show. Funny when it all comes together. The Milwaukee Bucks, defensive rank this year on handoffs, 28th in the NBA. In off-ball screens, 21st in the NBA. Interesting note about the Milwaukee Bucks. They are the worst defensive team in the NBA after covering a make. So when their defense gets set, they're actually bad, which is weird. All right, here's some things specifically to tonight's game. I always like to see how teams play, what they do, things like that. This is a team that has not been a particularly good shooting team this year. They're the third best pick and roll team in the league when they hit the pick and roll man, the roller. So Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis popping, something like that. They're the second best team in the league in isolation, in frequency. They hit the, let me reset that. They hit the pick and roll man, the third most of any team in the league, and they're Bobby Portis popping, Brook Lopez popping with Walker dropping when Giannis or Dame puts pressure on the rim. Okay, that makes sense. They're the number 2 ISO team in the league. They're the 4th best at it. Offensively, they're not shooting it great. After a made basket, when the other team's defense is set, they are 28th in the league offensively. After a miss, they are 20th. After a turnover, they are number 1. However, they don't force turnovers. They've had 3 straight years now of being last in the NBA in forcing turnovers. So if we can take care of the ball and not commit a bunch of turnovers, silly turnovers, because they're not going to force them, we can keep them from being in transition. By the way, they are 18-25 now under Doc Rivers. They were 30-13 in 43 games under Adrian Griffin, and under 43 games since, they are 18-25. I believe that is 43 of Adrian Griffin, now 43 of Doc Rivers. A 12-game difference. Chris Middleton is hurt. Giannis is questionable. They have lost 6 straight. It's an interesting little time for the Milwaukee Bucks because there's 2 teams going in this game at 1-6. One of them's trying to win a championship, and we're not. They're 20th in the rank offensively and 27th in the league defensively. Okay, we all love him. He's a great dude. His work with Special Olympics is unprecedented. He is absolutely a star amongst men. He is a 7-time All-Star. He brings great pleasure to the game. He deserves immense credit. Let me ask a question. At what point is a team being bad defensively with you on the roster every single year at some point your fault? The 2016-17, if we go to the 2019-20 Milwaukee Bucks, Portland Trailblazers, they ranked 28th in the league offensively. The next year, they ranked 29th in the league offensively. The 21-22 season, they ranked 30th offensively. In the 22-23 season, they ranked 27th offensively. And then you go to the Milwaukee Bucks. And the Milwaukee Bucks, under Mike Budenholzer, were one of the best defensive teams in the league. They're 4th. And then you add Damian Lillard and you drop to 19th. And then you go to 26th this year. Like, at what point is this on Dame? Just a question. Don't know. Honestly, don't know. Don't know enough. You can kind of dig into some of their defensive stuff. They're not great off handoffs. They're not great on off-ball screens. That's where we're going to try to exploit them today. They ranked 21st on off-ball screens. They ranked 26th guarding the pick-and-roll ball handler. They ranked 23rd guarding the pick-and-roll overall, and they ranked 28th on handoffs. That's point-of-attack defense. So that's a thought. All right, late game watch. I watched the Bucks and the Cavaliers twice. No Giannis in one of them. Dame made a bunch of incredible shots, but he also had 2 awful turnovers late. They're trying to hide Lillard on Okoro the whole time. And then that puts AJ Green, who was in the game for Milwaukee because they're short guys, on Garland, and Garland toasted him. Milwaukee went 7 straight empty possessions in that game without Giannis. And Lillard had a big communication mistake where he didn't want to get switched onto Garland, and then Garland went down the lane and scored. Then Lillard had an over and back where he got pressured and stepped out of bounds. Darius Garland was unreal in that game, absolutely dominant. Donovan Mitchell had a really nice pass to him, but that was Garland's game. They kind of turned it over to him. Very impressive. Philadelphia, Phoenix late. Kevin Durant is incredible. There were 2 plays in this game in which the Suns do something offensively. Bradley Beal does not run back defensively. Kevin Durant sprints the floor. Once he takes a charge, and the other time he gets a block shot. His 2 defensive plays late were the plays of champions, not to mention the fact that he had 15 points. Philly made 23s in this game and lost. I think they're the only team all year to make 20 games, threes in a game and lose. Nick Nurse runs some neat stuff with a horn set in the open side. A horn set into an open side pick and roll for Paul George was really nice. Phoenix is running a bunch of different sets, but it's all Kevin Durant. So they ran Durant ice with the elbow. They ran Durant high pick and roll with Nurkic. They ran Durant high pick and roll with Nurkic into a Spain pick and roll with Booker flaring. It is all for Kevin Durant. The other one that's really interesting is late in the game, Phoenix was hard hedging with Nurkic on the pick and roll, getting Philadelphia to move the basketball a little bit because they wanted it out of Maxi's hands. And that's, it's a risk with Nurkic doing that. Final play in that one, Yabusele was closing for Philly. They got switched on Durant, and Philly didn't run at 2 to the ball, which I'll not quite understand. The team that I watched that concerned me late game was Dallas. They just don't have anyone who can guard. They're good defensively right now, but I'm so curious to watch this for the season. So at one point, because Derek Lively was out, they had P.J. Washington playing center, and Dinwiddie was in the game guarding Halliburton. Then they had to keep Dinwiddie in the game to try to guard Halliburton. They just keep going at Doncic every play. And then if they don't get Doncic, then they got Nembhard or Mathurin being guarded by Kyrie Irving or Klay Thompson. Kyrie Irving is by far their best on-ball defender. Then they can't move Washington out to guard any of the ball handlers because they're lifting Turner. Indiana is pulling Gafford out of the middle of the lane, putting P.J. Washington to defend Siakam in the post. Finally, Dallas has to bring in Najee Marshall for some defensive purposes, which screws up all their offense. That's going to be a little balance to watch this year. I think Dallas has got some problems there. I would keep an eye on it. All right, those are the notes. Thank you so much for listening to Locked On Jazz. Locked On Daily to subscribe to the newsletter. I greatly appreciate it. You can follow me at DLock09 on the X or on Instagram. And if you haven't already done so, please follow our podcast on whatever app you're listening, or if you're on YouTube, subscribe and hit that bell button. Thank you so much for tuning in. Locked On NBA has 2 different shows for you now, a game night after going through every single game, as well as a good, fun daily show with Doug Branson, Matt Moore, and Hayes. Right now on the video, we will send you the first ever national 24/7 NBA channel. It's called Locked On Sports NBA, all day on YouTube.